So scroll on down to 24 on this Unit 2 test review. You're going to be given the formula because it's going to look exactly like this. We've got the formula here. So we know we want to do, we're going to write down our minus. We're going to put our parentheses for our f of x. We're going to write down our h. This is our f of x is 4x plus 8. So that needs to be what goes right here. Then we want to go to our function and we want to write down the function, except for wherever there's an x, we want to leave that blank. So I just wrote down the 4 and a blank plus 8, because inside that blank is supposed to be x plus h. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to distribute that 4 to both of these, the x and the h. So that's going to be 4x plus 4h. Then I've got plus 8. This minus needs to get distributed to both of those things. So minus 4x minus 8 all over h. At this point, some things, after you get everything distributed, some things should cancel out. So the 4x's, the 4x minus the 4x, the 8 minus the 8. So we end up with a 4h over h. The only thing that's left, well, the h's are going to cancel out because that is 1. And so our final answer is 4. Okay, let's look at 25. This time it's a little bit more, the problem's a little bit more difficult. You might want to go ahead and write for your, this is going to involve an x squared. So I would strongly suggest that you go ahead and write down your cheat up here that x plus h squared is equal to x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. So when you get ready for that, you can just plug it in. So we know we've got an h on the bottom, took care of that. We've got a minus on the top, and we want to subtract all of f of x, which is this whole thing. So we want to put negative 3x squared plus 10x plus 10 in those parentheses. So I took care of the minus, the f of x, and the h. Everybody okay from there? The next thing that you want to do is you want to go to your function. I'm going to kind of give myself a little bit more room. And we're writing down all of this minus 3x squared plus 10x plus 10, except for I'm taking out the x's. Going to kind of leave a space there big enough for me to put in what they're telling me to put in those blanks, which is x plus h. So we already know what x plus h squared is. So I just wrote down the negative 3. X plus h squared is this stuff. So I don't have to multiply it all out again. Some of you are pretty bright. You could probably, all of you are pretty bright. But some of you might be able to handle going ahead and multiplying by that negative 3 at the same time at this point, instead of having to do it in 2 separate steps. That's fine with me if that's what you do. But I'm going to go ahead and move and multiply by 10 over here. So 10x and 10 times h is 10h. And then we're going to, this negative is going to make all of these terms be the opposite of what they are. So plus 3x squared minus 10x minus 10 all over h. See, if I could have handled multiplying by the negative 3 right here, I could have gone ahead and start canceling things out. But before we start canceling things out here, we have to multiply by that negative 3. So negative 3 times x squared. And then negative 3 times 2xh is going to be, and -3 times h squared. Okay, and then I can just write the rest of it down. Okay, this is the point where you should get some things start collapsing out, right? -3x squared, +3x squared. Positive 10x, negative 10x. Do y'all see where I made a mistake? Why didn't you stop me? Okay, she's right. This +10 did not get moved down. And it has to get moved down. So let me see if I can, well, I guess we could add it on the end if we want to. We'll just put it on the end. It's fine. We'll stick it down here, +10. And then there'd be a +10 here. Because I'm like, I know that it's supposed to cancel out. So the -10 and the +10 are going to cancel out. And then that's it, right? -6xh and what? Yeah, so I'm left with -6xh over h minus 3h squared over h plus 10h over h. That was the stuff that was still there. So the h's are going to go away here. I'm going to get -6x. One of these h's will take one of those. So I have -3h. And these are going to cancel out. So +10. So my final answer is -6x minus 3h plus 10. Okay. Everybody good with that? That's kind of what we went over today. And so we were going to go ahead and take care of that first. Okay, let's go back up to number 1. If you need extra help with the calculator, okay, this is not the time to be, I can help you during lab. I'm just trying to go through this as far as how we would work the problem, because we won't get through it if we work every single one of them. But I will give you some strategies. You can definitely ask questions, but I'm just going to go over, okay, this is what we did in class. This is how we got this. And if you want to work it a different way, that's fine too. Okay. On this first problem, it says determine visually whether the function is even, odd, or neither. Okay, so what you need to do on this problem is you need to decide, is it symmetric? And if it is symmetric, what is it symmetric about? And it looks to me like you could fold this on the y-axis and it would be right on top of itself. So this is symmetric about the y-axis. And if that happens, it's even. So that's why the answer is even. The other one is symmetric about the origin. So that, remember that problem where you'd have to rotate it 180 degrees? That one's odd. If it's symmetric about the x-axis, it is neither. And because I don't know the exact problem you're going to get on your test, you might want to jot that down. So if it's symmetric about that y-axis, it's going to give you even. If it's symmetric about the origin, it's odd. And if it's symmetric about the x-axis or not symmetric at all, it's neither. Okay. We talked about this a whole lot, and we're doing translations, and we said, okay, if you remove everything away from this, we would just have this graph of f of x equals x squared when we're looking at this. The +1 would do what to this? It's going to go up 1 unit. Sorry, this should be up right here, not. And then you're right, the stuff inside the parentheses is opposite of what you think. So if it's a +4, it's going to go left 4. Okay. So you have a couple of options here. You can use your graphing calculator to kind of find the vertex if you want to. This is written in that vertex form. So if we type this in the graphing calculator, I don't know if you guys remember from the other day, we said if it has an H and a K, these 2 points would be my vertex. It would be the opposite of the +4 and the 1. So -4, 1 would be 1 point on my graph. But you can absolutely go to your graphing calculator and type in x + 4 squared + 1 and find some other points that would go on this graph. So I'm going to pick some points around -4 on both sides of -4 so I can get 2 other points, and I'm just going to mentally plug these in. So if I plug in -3 + 4, that's going to give me 1 squared + 1 is 2. So I should have a point at -3, 2. If I plug in -5 + 4 is -1 squared + 1. That's going to give me 2 as well. So I would have a point at -5, 2. But you can get these from the graphing calculator if you just go to y equals and then look at your table. So that's what it kind of looks like. And you know that on your test, it's going to force you to do your vertex first. So you might want to graph it and look at it if you're having trouble finding your vertex. Okay. Okay. This is just like if it was inside the parentheses. If it's at the square root of x + 6, you absolutely could just type this in your calculator and figure out which one it is. But the +6 is going to do the opposite of what you think. And so it's going to go to the left 6. Okay, so which one is it going to be? Because we're just taking that half of a u and we're moving it to the left 6. Is everybody okay with that? Your graphing calculator should be able to show you that. On number 4, another problem that we could graph and look at, it tells us what function we're starting with right here, so we really don't have to guess about that. What does the +2 do here? So the +2, you are correct, is going to go up 2. The -3 inside the parentheses is the opposite of what you think. So that is right 3. And I'm hearing that we need to reflect it across the x-axis because there's a negative in the front. So it's flipping it across the x-axis. If I were to tell you guys right now, go find the zeros of the function, what would you do? I hope that you're going to go to your graphing calculator and use the quad program because we spent a lot of time putting that in. So you absolutely can solve this out the other way, but we put this quad program in so that all we have to do is type in A is 1, B is 14, and C is 48, and it gives us the answers. It says that X is -6 and -8. Those are the zeros. If we need to go over that a little bit more in lab time, I'll be glad to do that. This test is not due this Sunday, it's due the next Sunday. So you have plenty of time to answer questions, but you need to practice. Be working on your test reviews. Same thing here. I mean, we would use the quad program. If you don't have the quad program and you have your graphing calc and you're using your phone for your calculator, you can use that the Poly Root Finder that's under your programs. You would do the second root, but this one, A would be 4, B is -1, and C is 9. If you're doing this by hand, this is the one where you're going to say X is equal to -B plus or minus B squared minus 4AC over 2A. Okay, but we've got that program that we're able to use, and this is one of them that you're going to want because the answer is 1/8 plus or minus the square root of 143 over 8. Okay, and it gives you some kind of decimal. Actually, this one has an I behind it, Make sure you put that I there. So you hit enter twice and it gives you the second set of answers. Okay, use the graph of f of x to find the x-intercepts. Okay, so they've given us the graph, so we just have to go, okay, we've got points at -3, 0. And they're actually asking for the intercept, so you want to put the whole coordinate, and the other one is 5, 0. If they say, what are the solutions? You just list the part that's talking about whatever x is, and you do not put parentheses around it. It's -3 and 5, because if you put parentheses around it, you're talking about a coordinate. Okay. So I am going to draw this picture right here, but I'm going to start this problem up here so we have a little bit more room. So number 8. A wire is stretched from the ground to the top of an antenna tower. So we know we've got this right triangle. It says the wire is 30 feet long. The height of the tower is 6 feet greater than the distance d from the tower's base to the end of the wire. So the height of the tower is going to be 6 plus d, and the distance from the wire to the base of the tower is d. So we've got our right triangle. So you're supposed to do the legs squared, add them together, is equal to the hypotenuse. The legs are the shortest side. So you're going to say d squared plus 6 plus d squared is equal to 30 squared. This is also one we can do on the calculator, but we've got to get it equal to 0 to get that to happen. So we've got to start working with, so d squared, 6 plus d times 6 plus d is equal to 30 squared would be 900. Just going to jot that down right there. So if we start multiplying this out using FOIL, we would get 36 plus 6d plus 6d plus d squared is equal to 900. Okay, so we can combine some like terms here. We have a d squared and another d squared. That's 2d squared. We could put together the 6d and the 6d. That's going to be 12 d's. And then we've got plus 36 equals 900. So we're almost where we can do this on the graphing calculator, but we need to subtract 900 from both sides of our equal sign. And so we would have 2d squared plus 12d minus 864 is equal to 0. So so we could definitely use the quad program here, or you can use your Polyroot Finder on the applications. But A is 2, B is 12, C is negative 864. Okay, if you're following on Zoom, go ahead and tell us what the answer is to this. You're going to get 2 answers here, right? One of them is 18, the other is negative 24. And we know that this one doesn't work. So we actually found out that D is 18, and D is the distance from the wire to the distance from the bottom of the wire to the end of the tower here. So that would be the first one. And to find out what the height of the tower is, we're going to need to know what 6 plus 18 is, which is going to be 24. So make sure you're answering the questions. That's going to give us our 24 feet. The foot of an extension ladder Same, we got triangles here. So the foot of an extension ladder is 3 feet from the wall. The height that the ladder reaches on the wall and the length of the ladder are consecutive integers. That means numbers right in a row. So we used X, and because this side is the hypotenuse and it's the longest, we let that one be X plus 1. Consecutive integers, numbers right in a row. So when we set up this problem, our legs would be the X and the 3. So we would say X squared plus 3 squared equals X plus 1 squared. So X squared plus 9 is equal to X plus 1 times X plus 1. This is the one that we worked in class that's really nice because some things start collapsing out of it. So X squared plus 9 equals X squared plus 2X plus 1. Okay, and then we would say we need to subtract our X squareds. And so we're going to end up with 9 is equal to 2X plus 1. Subtract 1. So 8 is equal to 2X divided by 2. So X is equal to 8. Make sure that you're answering the question is one of the hardest parts of this. So X is actually how tall the wall is before the ladder hits it, right? So this would be 8 feet, but they want to know the length of the ladder. So we would have to finish it and say, well, X plus 1 is the length of the ladder. So 8 plus 1 is 9 feet. Okay. How are we doing on that one? Yes. And you know what? Sage knew that, because I can tell on her face, she's like, crazy teacher, please say something, because my brain sometimes, especially when this is the second time I've done this today. So sorry. Yes, 8 divided by 2 is 4 and not 8. And so this needs to be 4. And 4 plus 1 is definitely not 9. It is 5. Now are we good? Okay. Now I apologize. Sometimes I'm going through the motions in my head and my mind somewhere else. Solving something else. Okay. So this one's kind of easy just because they give you this point. They tell you that they tell you what the vertex is. They say it's 3, 2. We don't even have to, they don't give us an equation or anything, but we know that it's 3, 2. They told us it was. The axis of symmetry is always going to be whatever X is at that point. So you would say X equals 3. The minimum or the maximum value is always going to be whatever Y was. So it's 2. Be very careful about how you type in your answers, because you want to make sure that you're typing them in like this so that you get the notation right. Okay, on this one, we get a little bit more complicated because now they're telling us that this is our function. So the very first thing that I would do is not go straight to the calculator. I would do this by hand. Maybe if you want to check on the calculator like we were doing on Monday and do the second trace and figure out the minimum and maximum that way to check your work, I would do that. But sometimes these don't show up really pretty on our calculator. So we can always find the X coordinate of the vertex if it's quadratic, if we do negative B over 2A. So on this problem, A is equal to 2, B is equal to 6, and C is equal to 2. So my X coordinate would be negative 6 over 2 times 2. And that's going to be negative 6 over 4, which is negative 3 over 2. That's going to be the X coordinate of my vertex. To get the Y coordinate, all I have to do is plug that X coordinate in. So I would go 2 times -3/2 squared. So every time I see an X, I'm just plugging that in, plus 6 times -3/2 plus 2. And you're going to come up with -5/2 as your answer. The axis of symmetry is always going to be at whatever X equals right there. So X equals -3/2. Does this thing have a minimum or a maximum? If A is positive, then the graph faces up and it has a minimum. If A is negative, the graph faces down and it has a maximum. So this A is 2, it's positive, so it's going to have a minimum. The minimum value is always whatever Y is at your vertex, so -5/2. We good with that one? They want us to graph it. So to graph it, I know that this, we can also write this as -1.5. -3 divided by 2 is -1.5. And -5 divided by 2 is -2.5. So at -1.5, -2.5, we have a coordinate right there. So there's one of our points we can use. We need 2 other coordinates, and I think on your graph, they only make you pick one, don't they? When you're doing this on the computer, they just make you pick one and then it finishes the rest of that curve. So just plug in 0. What does 0 do? If we plug in 0 here for X, we would get 2. So we would have a point at 0, 2. Kind of comes up here like this. The other side's going to kind of match that. If you don't know, where can you go to get these points? Yeah, you can go to Y equals, you can type in the function and do second graph and look at your table and find some other points to plot, right? Okay. The graph of h of x is equal to x minus 5 squared can be obtained by translating the graph x squared right 5 units. It's supposed to be the opposite of what we think, so it looks like we're going left. So yeah, I agree. That's true. If it was a +5, we would be going left. Okay, given this function, they want us to find all of this stuff. So to start by finding the vertex, find the vertex, you want to start with your x value, which is -b/2a. This is very similar to what we just got through doing. So a is 1, b is -10, and c is 24. So -10 over 2 times 1. X coordinate of our vertex is going to be 5. To find the y coordinate, you simply go and plug in your x coordinate in your formula. Wherever you see x, you're going to put 5. And that answer is -1. So that's the y coordinate. You could also do on your graphing calculator second trace and find the minimum or the maximum that way. So right now, what I know is that on my graph, if I'm just make a really rough graph, what I have is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, that we've got something, we got a point. That's our vertex. Okay, so I like to, especially if I don't have a picture and they're not asking me to draw a picture, I like to kind of jot one down so I can get a rough picture of what's going on. So is this going to have a minimum or a maximum? A is positive. So since A is positive, this graph is facing up, and you can see that it's going to have a minimum. And the minimum value is always whatever Y was at the vertex, so -1. So we know now, I don't even have to get any more points. I just know that this thing is facing up because Y for A is positive. So I just kind of draw something to help me figure out the rest of this. So in the range, you're going to start at the bottom. Range is asking what can Y be? You're going to start at the bottom and you're going to go up. And it looks like that the first time we have a value for Y is at -1, and that the graph keeps going in the upward direction forever from there. So when we talk about increasing and decreasing, we go, okay, negative infinity is over here. So when we go to our graph, the first thing we're going to do is decrease all the way down to when X is 5. So we are decreasing from negative infinity to 5. Then at 5, we start increasing all the way to positive infinity. Always do this in terms of what's happening with X, and 5 is the place where it turns from increasing to decreasing. So this one is very similar to that one. So to find my vertex, the first thing I want to do is X equals -b over 2a. In this problem, A is -4, B is -20, and C is 5. So -20 over 2 times -4. I'm just getting my A, B, and C from right here. So I'm getting 20 over -8. And if you reduce that, you're going to get -5 over 2. So -5 over 2 is the first part of our vertex, the X. To find the Y value, you can simply go in, plug in wherever you see an X, you're going to put -5 over 2. And if you do that, you're going to get 30. So that's the Y part of our formula, our not formula, vertex. So this point is really -2.530. So I make a really rough graph of this. If X is -2.5, which would be about right here, all the way up here, so I'm just going to jot that down. This is -2.5. All the way up here, somewhere way high, I'm going to have 30. And that's where the vertex is, -2.530. Is this thing going to be opening up or down? It is. A is negative, right? And if A is negative, then this thing is going to be opening down. And so it's going to have a maximal. And the maximum value is, so I'm going to go ahead and just draw this over here so I kind of can wrap my mind around a little bit. But my maximum value is going to be whatever Y is there, which is 30. So the range has to deal with Y values. So you always want to start at the bottom and go up. If we start at the bottom of this graph and we start going up, well, this graph goes down forever, right? So it's going to go from negative infinity all the way up to we're good until here. And what is Y right there? 30. So Y is allowed to be 30 on the range. That's when it gets a bracket. This function is increasing. So the first thing, if you go from left to right, you're starting at negative infinity. You're going to go up, up, up. So we're increasing from negative infinity to where X is -5 over 2 or -2.5, whichever one you want to write. And then it starts going down from -5 over 2 to infinity. Okay. So we've got this rocket problem. T, when we figure out what T is, that's going to tell us the time. And then we're going to plug it back in to figure out how tall this is. So what we need to do is x is equal to negative b over 2a. In this problem, b is 96, so we would do negative 96 over 2, and a is negative 16. And that comes up to be 3. So the rocket reaches its maximum height at 3 seconds. To figure out what the maximum height is, you can absolutely use your calculator if you want to do that for that tracing thing to find the maximum point. Or you can just plug in, every time you see a T, plug in 3. I mean, to me, this is almost as fast as trying to type the formula in the calculator and do a second trace and back and forth and all that stuff. So that just depends on what you want to do on this one. The answer is 149 when you plug that in. So 149 feet is going to be the maximum height there. We've talked about how if you have a square root, you can't take the square root of a negative number because it would give you something that's imaginary. So that 4x plus 1 has to be greater than or equal to 0. Remember that if you're solving one of these problems and you multiply or divide by a negative number, then you're going to have to flip your sign. But on this problem, we didn't have to multiply or divide by a negative number. So x has to be greater than or equal to negative 1/4. So 16 is going to be A. We know that in this formula, this -4, it means that it's shifting the square root of x to the right 4. I would imagine that a lot of you are probably going to go straight to your graphing calculator and plug that in and then see which one it looks like. Okay, just make sure that you're really comparing that. Yes, I heard somebody write D. Okay, same thing on this one. We've got the square root of 3x minus 4. If you plug that one in, you're going to find that the answer is D on this one as well. Okay. This is what we talked about the last class. Number 19, the piecewise function is defined as shown to the right. And it says if you're trying to find f of 1, so that means when x is equal to 1, you want to see which group it goes into. Well, this little line underneath this greater than means equal to, so it would go in this group. This is where x is equal to 1 belongs. It doesn't go into any of the others, so that we would use c x squared to solve that. Determine the intervals on which the function is increasing, decreasing, and constant. So you always want to start from the left and go to the right. So we're starting at negative infinity. We're going to our graph. It looks like immediately we start going up. And it looks like we go up until we get right here when x is -8. So the first thing we're going to do is increase from negative infinity to -8. We might increase again, but I'm going to go ahead and look at the rest of the stuff. So from -8 all the way down to where x is -6, we are decreasing. Then it looks like we're staying constant from -6 to -3. Then from -3 to -2, we're going up. That would have to go back up here. And then we're staying constant again. So from -2 to infinity, we're kind of evening out. Did I hear somebody asking a question about this one? Okay, that's all we have to do on that. We need to close off those parentheses. I mean, they were really nice on 21. They even give you the value for the coordinate over here. So this is a relative maximum, right? And it occurs where x is 3.5 and has a value of 1.25. That's that coordinate. On what intervals is it increasing? Well, if we start over here at negative infinity, we're going to start increasing first. So it's increasing until it gets here. And what is X right here? 3.5, correct. So it's increasing from negative infinity to 3.5, which is D. And then after 3.5, it starts going down to infinity. So that one is going to be C. Questions about that? Most of you are working these in the lab, so you know what's going on with that. 22. Identify any relative maximum or minimum. So let's talk about these separate. This would be a maximum here. So we would say the relative maximum is whatever the Y value is, which is -1, and that happens at -7 when X is -7. The relative minimum is -33, and it happens when X is 1. Well, this graph is increasing first from negative infinity all the way to where X is equal to -7. You always talk about the X value. So negative infinity to -7, then it's decreasing from -7 to where X is 1. And then it's increasing again from 1 to infinity. So C and D. Okay, is everybody good with that? Okay, so this is the last one we've got to do. We already took care of those last ones. So on this problem, they're wanting us to find H of -5. So they're saying when X is equal to -5, what is the answer? So you need to decide, does it belong to group 1, 2, or 3? If X is -5, I'm hearing 1 because -5 is less than -4. So it fits in this group. So we want to use the equation -2x minus 9. We want to plop that -5 right in there to the X. So -2 times -5 minus 9. That answer is going to be here in 1. The next time you want to let X equal 1. X is equals 1 would be sandwiched in between -4 and 3. So we'd want to use this. So 3, there's nothing I can do that. It's 3. There's nothing for me to plug in there. So this one says X is 3, which is going to belong to this group. It's equal to 3. So it would go to this one, X plus 9. So you're going to plug that 3 in there for X. You're going to say 3 plus 9 is equal to 12. And then the last one, they're saying when X is equal to 6, still using that third one. So X plus 9, so 6 plus 9 is equal to 15. And that's why that's the answer there. So that is the review for the second unit.